The budget exercise begins first by ascertaining how much the economy will grow. That is the nominal GDP growth. The fiscal deficit is measured as a percentage of this nominal GDP. Also, how much taxes will grow will depend on how fast the economy grows. So, a poll of economists showed that nominal GDP growth will be assumed for FY26 at 10.2 to 10.3%. This is slightly higher than the 9.7% achieved this year, which has been revised lower from the budgeted 10.5% last July budget. What will this mean in terms of actual GDP number? The current year, that is FY25, the nominal GDP has been calculated by the MOSPI, or the Ministry of Statistics, at 324.1 trillion, less than the 326.4 trillion which was assumed in the July budget. A 10.3% growth over this 324 trillion works to 357.2 trillion. Now, all economists expect the government will stick to fiscal discipline and bring down the fiscal deficit to 4.4 to 4.5% of GDP. This will be easier because some expect even the current year, FY25 fiscal deficit, to be lower than the budget estimate of 4.9%. Now, a fiscal deficit of 4.4 to 4.5% of a GDP of 357 trillion means the actual deficit number may be at or a little under 16 trillion rupees. Now, about 70% of this is borrowed from the market. That will be about 14 trillion rupees. Bond market is very comfortable with that market borrowing program. Now, deficit is revenue collections minus expenses. So what are the tax and expenditure assumptions of the market? Gross tax revenues are seen growing slightly faster than nominal GDP at 10.7% to 42.2 trillion rupees. Within this, direct tax is seen growing by 12% in FY26 over a 14% growth this year. Now, within direct taxes, corporate taxes are seen improving from this year's very poor showing. Income tax, which has been growing at a steaming over 20% in FY25, is seen mellowing to a 15% growth next year, partly because of expected tax cuts and partly because capital gains and STT may not contribute much in FY26. Now, on the non-tax revenue side, the single biggest number to watch is Reserve Bank dividend. In FY25, the Reserve Bank gave 2.1 lakh crore. Some economists have assumed the same for the FY26 as well. But some have assumed less. The Reserve Bank dividend can make a big difference to how much the government can spend. Coming to the expenditure side, every economist agrees that the government won't be able to spend the entire 11.1 trillion rupees that was budgeted for capex or capital expansion in FY25. While capex was budgeted to grow by 17% this year, the actual growth has been perhaps 6.5%. On this lower base, economists expect the government to budget a 10% higher capex to touch 11.1 trillion rupees in FY26. Now, the cutback in capex is also needed if the fiscal deficit target, the lower target, has to be met. Economists are, however, divided on this. Some want or expect the government to keep on pressing the capex pedal. Others say the government will recognize the K-shaped recovery and increase the revenue spending on, say, incentives for labor-intensive manufacturing, for employment subsidies that were announced in the last budget, credit for MSMEs, promoting rural housing programs like the Awas Yojana, and a sustained focus on food supply chains. Many expect that. The big macro factor to watch out for will be the shift from fiscal deficit to debt to GDP as the guide, which means from the next year, do we not have to watch out for a fiscal deficit number? Will there be some other guidance on the debt to GDP goals? That will be one big question for which the market will want an answer.
Make informed decisions with comprehensive analysis on the go.
Strengthen your portfolio with real-time market updates on the go. Create effective strategies with insightful expert opinions on the go.
Grow on the go with CNBC-TV18, now streaming live 24/7 on YouTube.
Thank you for watching CNBC TV 18. For all our top stories and news updates, follow us on our social media platforms.